The desert heat shimmered off the broken concrete as Elena Martinez crouched behind the remnants of what had once been a school playground. Her camera felt heavy in her hands, the familiar weight somehow different today. She had been covering conflicts for 12 years, from the streets of Aleppo to the mountains of Afghanistan, but something about this assignment felt wrong from the moment she stepped off the transport helicopter. The rebel commander who had requested her presence was a ghost himself. Known only as Viper, he had allegedly taken down over 200 enemy combatants with precision shots that defied explanation. Military analysts called him a myth, a propaganda tool created to boost morale among the scattered resistance forces fighting the occupying army. Elena had come to separate truth from legend, to find the human being behind the stories that had spread across international media like wildfire. Her editor back in London had been skeptical when she pitched the story. Another sniper piece, Elena. The market's saturated with those war hero narratives. But Elena knew this was different. The pattern of kills attributed to Viper showed an impossible level of accuracy across distances that challenged the laws of physics. Either someone was fabricating an elaborate hoax, or they were dealing with a marksman whose skills bordered on the supernatural. The first sign of trouble came when her camera's autofocus began stuttering during what should have been routine establishing shots of the bombed-out cityscape. Elena had been using the same model for 3 years without a single malfunction. She checked the battery level, cleaned the lens, and ran through every troubleshooting procedure she knew. The camera would work perfectly for several minutes, then suddenly lose focus at crucial moments, as if responding to some external interference. Captain Rodriguez, her military escort, kept checking his watch with increasing frequency. "We need to move, ma'am. Intelligence suggests enemy reconnaissance drones are active in this sector." Elena nodded, but continued adjusting her equipment. Professional instinct told her that her camera's behavior wasn't random mechanical failure. The timing was too precise, too convenient. The safe house they approached looked like every other building in the war-torn district. 3 stories of bullet-scarred concrete with most of its windows blown out and replaced with sheets of plastic or simply left open to the elements. Children's drawings still decorated what remained of an exterior wall, faded but visible reminders of the lives that had been displaced by years of fighting. Inside, Elena met the rebels who claimed to work alongside Viper. They were younger than she had expected, most barely out of their teens, with the hollow-eyed look common among people who had seen too much violence too soon. They spoke about their legendary sniper with a reverence that bordered on religious devotion. "He appears when we need him most," explained Ahmed, a 19-year-old who served as a spotter for various sniper teams. "Sometimes we don't see him for weeks, then suddenly enemy officers start falling at impossible distances. The occupying forces have tripled their bounty on his head 3 times in the past year." Elena set up her equipment to film Ahmad's interview, but again her camera began malfunctioning at critical moments. The autofocus would hunt endlessly when Ahmed described specific incidents, then suddenly snap into perfect clarity when the conversation shifted to general topics about the war. It was as if the device was programmed to prevent documentation of certain information. The strangest incident occurred during her second day at the safe house. Elena was reviewing footage on her camera's small screen when she noticed something that shouldn't have been there. In the background of several shots taken from different locations throughout the city, the same figure appeared. A tall man in civilian clothes, always positioned at the edge of the frame, always too far away to make out clear features, but consistently present in places where he shouldn't have been able to predict her movements. Captain Rodriguez dismissed her concerns. "Coincidence, ma'am. This is a small city and there aren't many safe routes through the combat zones. You're probably seeing the same local guide or aid worker." But Elena's instincts, honed by years of investigative journalism, told her otherwise. Someone was following her, and somehow that same someone was connected to her camera's mysterious malfunctions. On the 3rd morning, Ahmed approached her with barely contained excitement. "Viper has agreed to meet you. Tonight, after midnight, at the old observatory on the hill overlooking the Eastern District. He says to bring your camera, but warns that electronic devices sometimes behave strangely in his presence." Elena felt her pulse quicken. The Eastern District was firmly under enemy control, with multiple checkpoints and regular patrols. Reaching the observatory would require moving through hostile territory with no backup and no official protection. Captain Rodriguez would never approve such a mission, which meant she would have to proceed without military escort. The implications were staggering. If Viper was real and possessed the abilities attributed to him, she was about to conduct the interview of her career. If this was an elaborate trap or hoax, she was walking into a situation that could end her career or her life. Either way, her camera's mysterious behavior suggested that forces beyond her understanding were already at work. That afternoon, Alina made careful preparations for the night ahead. She checked and rechecked her equipment, loaded fresh batteries, and cleared storage space on her memory cards. She also took the precaution of copying all her existing footage to multiple backup drives, including detailed notes about her camera's erratic behavior. Something told her that whatever happened at the observatory, nothing would be the same afterward. As evening approached, Alina found herself studying the distant silhouette of the observatory through broken windows. The building sat on a rocky outcrop that provided commanding views of the entire region, exactly the kind of position a sniper would choose for operations. If Viper was real, if he possessed even half the abilities attributed to him, she was about to meet one of the most effective individual combatants in modern warfare. The rebels provided her with detailed maps showing patrol routes and checkpoint locations, but warned that enemy forces changed their patterns frequently. "Trust your instincts," Ahmed advised. "Viper says the same thing that's affecting your camera will help guide you to him if you let it." The cryptic statement made no sense, but Alina filed it away with all the other mysteries surrounding this assignment. As midnight approached, Alina gathered her equipment and prepared to venture into enemy territory. Her camera hung around her neck like a technological albatross, its weight both familiar and threatening. Whatever was causing the malfunctions seemed to be building toward something, and Alina had the unsettling feeling that her equipment problems were just the beginning of a much larger revelation. Captain Rodriguez caught her preparing to leave. "Ma'am, I can't allow you to proceed without escort." Alina showed him written authorization from his commanding officer, obtained through channels she preferred not to discuss. "This is a sanctioned operation, Captain. I appreciate your concern, but I have my orders." The walk through the darkened city felt like moving through a living nightmare. Every shadow could conceal an enemy soldier, every sound might indicate an approaching patrol. Alina's camera, strapped securely to her chest, began emitting a soft electronic whine she had never heard before. The sound was barely audible, but it seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Halfway to her destination, Alina realized that the camera's mysterious behavior was actually helping her navigate. When she moved in directions that would take her away from enemy patrols, the device remained silent. When she approached potentially dangerous routes, the electronic whining intensified. It was impossible, but her malfunctioning equipment seemed to be serving as some kind of sophisticated detection system. The observatory loomed against the starlit sky like an ancient monument. Alina approached the building from the south, following a route that her camera's strange behavior had suggested was safest. No guards were visible, no lights indicated human presence, but something about the structure radiated an aura of watchful intelligence. Alina climbed the steps to the observatory's main entrance, her camera now humming so softly it was almost musical. At the top of the steps, she found the door standing open, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. Taking a deep breath, she stepped across the threshold and into whatever truth awaited her inside. The interior of the observatory was not what she had expected. Instead of the ruins she anticipated, Alina found herself in a space that had been carefully maintained and modified. Bank of electronic equipment lined the walls, their displays casting eerie blue and green light throughout the circular chamber. At the center of the room stood the observatory's original telescope, but it had been extensively modified with additional optics and what appeared to be sophisticated targeting systems. "Welcome, Alina Martinez." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, seeming to resonate from the walls themselves. "I apologize for the dramatic circumstances, but your investigation has forced my hand. It's time you learned the truth about Viper and about why your camera has been behaving so strangely." Alina raised her camera instinctively, but instead of the chaotic autofocus problems she had experienced for days, the device now operated with supernatural precision. Every shot was perfectly focused, perfectly exposed, as if the equipment had suddenly become an extension of her own vision. She was finally going to get the answers she had come here to find, but something told her that the truth about Viper would challenge everything she thought she knew about the nature of modern warfare. Alina's finger hovered over the record button as she scanned the modified observatory for the source of the disembodied voice. Her camera, now operating with impossible precision, seemed to guide itself towards specific areas of the room, focusing on details she might have missed with her naked eye. Through the viewfinder, she could see heat signatures highlighting areas where someone had recently been standing, residual thermal patterns that shouldn't have been visible to standard camera equipment. "Your device isn't malfunctioning," the voice continued, now seeming to come from directly behind the modified telescope. "It's been upgraded. Every piece of electronic equipment that enters my operational zone receives certain enhancements, whether the operator realizes it or not. Your camera has been serving as both surveillance device and communication tool since you arrived in the city." Alina lowered her camera slightly, trying to process what she was hearing. Upgraded by whom? And why didn't anyone tell me about surveillance modifications? Her journalist's instincts kicked into overdrive. If her equipment had been compromised, every piece of footage she had captured could be contaminated or, worse, completely fabricated. A figure stepped out from behind the telescope, moving with the fluid precision of someone accustomed to avoiding detection. The man appeared to be in his mid-40s, with graying hair and the kind of weathered features that came from years of outdoor operations. But his eyes were what captured Alina's attention. They held an intelligence that seemed almost electronic, as if he was processing information at speeds beyond normal human capability. "I'm Colonel Marcus Webb, formerly of the British Special Air Service, currently operating under the code name Viper. The upgrades to your equipment were necessary to verify that you were who you claimed to be and that your investigation was legitimate rather than enemy intelligence gathering." He gestured to the banks of equipment around them. "This facility serves as both sniper nest and electronic warfare center. Every shot attributed to me is coordinated through systems that your military doesn't yet understand." Alina raised her camera again, and this time Webb made no move to avoid being filmed. As she focused on his face, additional information began appearing in her viewfinder. Range measurements, wind speed calculations, even what appeared to be predictive trajectory models superimposed over the image. Her camera was somehow interfacing with the same systems Webb used for his legendary marksmanship. "The shots attributed to Viper aren't all mine," Webb continued, settling into a chair that was positioned to provide clear sight lines through multiple windows. "I coordinate a network of marksmen using advanced prediction algorithms and real-time battlefield intelligence. When enemy officers move into predetermined kill zones, the closest qualified shooter receives targeting data through encrypted channels. The impossible accuracy comes from having complete information about target behavior patterns, wind conditions, and equipment specifications." Alina felt her understanding of the story shifting dramatically. So Viper isn't a single super sniper, but a technological system coordinating multiple shooters. She was already thinking about how this revelation would transform her article. Instead of a mythical warrior, she was documenting an unprecedented example of how technology was changing the nature of individual combat effectiveness. Webb smiled grimly. "It's more complex than that. The system requires someone with the skills to make the impossible shots when other operators aren't in position. I've personally taken down 47 high-value targets over the past 18 months, but another 150 kills attributed to Viper were coordinated through other shooters. The legend serves multiple purposes. It provides cover for the technological capabilities we're deploying, and it creates psychological pressure on enemy forces." Through her viewfinder, Alina could see additional displays activating throughout the observatory. Her camera was somehow interfacing with Webb's entire network, showing her real-time intelligence feeds from across the region. Drone footage, satellite imagery, and communications intercepts painted a comprehensive picture of enemy movements that updated continuously. "Why are you showing me this?" Alina asked, though she continued filming. "This kind of intelligence capability represents a massive military advantage. Exposing it would compromise operations and put lives at risk." Even as she asked the question, Alina realized she was facing the classic journalist's dilemma, the public's right to know versus the potential consequences of publication. Webb's expression grew serious. "Because the system is about to be compromised anyway. Enemy forces have captured equipment that includes traces of our modifications. Within days, they'll understand enough about our capabilities to develop countermeasures. The Viper network has perhaps 72 hours of operational effectiveness remaining." Alina lowered her camera, the implications sinking in. "You're burning your entire operation to give me this story. Why?" She studied Webb's face, looking for signs of deception or hidden motives. In her experience, military personnel didn't sacrifice strategic advantages for media exposure without compelling reasons. Because what we've developed here represents the future of individual combat effectiveness, Webb replied. The technology exists, and it's going to proliferate whether we control the narrative or not. Better that the world understands how these systems work from a perspective that emphasizes their defensive applications rather than letting enemy propaganda define them as tools of aggression. Webb moved to a control console and began bringing additional systems online. Alina's camera automatically adjusted its settings to capture the increasing complexity of displays and data streams surrounding them. Your device is now functioning as a recording interface for systems that cost millions of pounds to develop. Every frame you capture contains embedded metadata that will allow military analysts to understand capabilities that would normally require years of reverse engineering to discover. Alina felt a chill as she realized the full scope of what was happening. You're not just giving me a story, you're using me to transfer military technology to whoever analyzes this footage. She stepped back from the equipment, suddenly uncertain whether she was conducting an interview or participating in an intelligence operation. Webb nodded slowly. Your editor has been briefed on the security implications of your assignment. The footage you're capturing will be reviewed by appropriate authorities before publication, but the core story will reach the public exactly as you document it. The difference is that hostile forces will learn about these capabilities through controlled disclosure rather than through captured equipment analysis. The journalist in Alina rebelled against the idea of her work being subject to security review, but the larger implications were becoming clear. She was witnessing the unveiling of technology that could fundamentally change how modern conflicts were fought. The story was bigger than just documenting the legend of Viper. She was recording the emergence of a new category of warfare entirely. Webb returned to the telescope, making fine adjustments to its positioning. Would you like to see how a Viper shot is actually coordinated? Alina nodded, raising her camera to document whatever demonstration he was preparing. Through her viewfinder, she could see targeting data beginning to stream across multiple displays, showing enemy patrol movements in real time. There's a supply convoy moving through the eastern approach, Webb narrated as he worked. 3 vehicles, minimal escort, carrying equipment stolen from one of our forward bases. The optimal intercept point is approximately 1,400 meters southeast of our position. Alina's camera was somehow receiving the same tactical information Webb was viewing, showing her the complete intelligence picture. Webb made a subtle hand gesture, and Alina realized he was communicating with other elements of his network through systems her camera was now monitoring. Sniper Team Delta is in position at the primary intercept point. They have clear sight lines and optimal environmental conditions. Target designation is being transmitted now. Through her camera, Alina watched as targeting data was refined and transmitted to the distant sniper team. Wind speed, humidity, target movement patterns, even the specific ballistic characteristics of the ammunition being used were factored into calculations that updated in real time. The level of precision was unlike anything she had seen in conventional military operations. Contact, Webb announced quietly. Target eliminated. Convoy has halted and is withdrawing under covering fire from unknown positions. Alina's camera captured not just Webb's calm announcement, but the entire data flow that had made the successful engagement possible. She was documenting capabilities that most military units could only dream of possessing. The demonstration continued for another hour, with Alina capturing footage that revealed the full scope of the Viper network's capabilities. Remote sensor feeds, predictive movement algorithms, coordinated multi-team operations, and technology integration that bordered on science fiction. Her camera recorded everything with a clarity and depth that should have been impossible with civilian equipment. As the evening's operations concluded, Webb began powering down systems and preparing to abandon the observatory. This facility has served its purpose. By tomorrow morning, enemy forces will have triangulated enough signals to identify this location. The next phase of operations will require different capabilities and different locations. Alina realized she was witnessing the end of an era. The legendary sniper Viper was about to disappear, but the technology and tactics he represented were evolving into something even more sophisticated. What happens next? Do you continue operating under a different identity, Or does the network evolve beyond the need for individual operators? Webb's smile was enigmatic. That depends partly on how your story is received. The future of warfare is being written by people who understand that information dominance matters more than individual marksmanship. But there will always be situations that require human judgment and human skills. The technology enhances capabilities. It doesn't replace the operator. Elena spent the remaining hours before dawn documenting Webb's preparations for departure and learning about the broader implications of the technology she had witnessed. Her camera continued to function with supernatural effectiveness, capturing details and perspectives that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. As Webb prepared to leave the observatory permanently, Elena realized that her investigation had uncovered something far more significant than the legend of a single sniper. She had documented the emergence of a new paradigm in individual combat effectiveness, one that would influence military operations for decades to come. The truth about Viper was more complex and more important than anyone had imagined, and Elena was carrying the responsibility of telling that story to a world that wasn't yet ready to understand its implications. Elena followed Webb through a series of hidden passages beneath the observatory, her camera continuing to record with the enhanced capabilities that had transformed her documentation equipment into something approaching military-grade surveillance technology. The underground tunnels revealed an infrastructure that extended far beyond the single building she had initially explored, connecting to a network of facilities that had been operating undetected throughout the conflict zone. The Viper network required extensive preparation, Webb explained as they moved through corridors lined with fiber optic cables and ventilation systems. What appears to be a single sniper operation actually represents 3 years of infrastructure development, intelligence gathering, and technology integration. Every successful engagement builds on months of preparation and coordination. Elena's enhanced camera revealed details of the underground facility that would have been invisible under normal circumstances. Heat signature overlays showed where equipment had been recently active. Electromagnetic field visualization indicated the location of communication systems. And even air current mapping revealed the sophisticated environmental controls that kept the facility operational. She was documenting a level of operational sophistication that challenged conventional understanding of guerrilla warfare capabilities. At a junction where 3 tunnels converged, Webb paused to demonstrate another aspect of his operation. Your camera is now interfacing with our complete sensor network. Every piece of electronic equipment within a 15-kilometer radius is providing data to our central processing system. Elena watched through her viewfinder as a comprehensive tactical display materialized, showing the real-time positions of every significant electronic device in the surrounding area. Enemy communications, vehicle movements, weapon systems, even individual soldiers carrying electronic equipment appear on this display, Webb continued. The Viper network's targeting capability comes from having complete battlefield awareness rather than superior marksmanship alone. Elena realized she was seeing warfare from a perspective that most professional soldiers never experienced, a god's-eye view of the battlefield that explained the seemingly impossible accuracy attributed to Viper. They emerged from the underground facility through a concealed entrance in what appeared to be a bombed-out residential building. Elena's camera automatically adjusted to the changing light conditions while maintaining its enhanced capabilities. Dawn was beginning to break over the city, revealing the extent of damage from months of fighting, but also highlighting infrastructure that Elena now realized served dual purposes. 70% of the communication antennas visible from this position are part of our network, Webb noted, gesturing toward various structures throughout the cityscape. They're disguised as damaged infrastructure or civilian communication equipment, but they're actually providing real-time intelligence feeds that coordinate all Viper operations. Elena filmed the seemingly innocuous antennas and towers, her camera highlighting the subtle modifications that distinguished them from genuine civilian equipment. A soft alert tone from Elena's camera indicated incoming communication traffic. Through her viewfinder, she could see encrypted messages flowing between various elements of Webb's network, coordinating the evacuation of equipment and personnel from locations throughout the region. The legendary sniper was systematically dismantling his entire operation in preparation for the next phase of whatever conflict would follow. The technology you're documenting will be obsolete within 6 months, Webb explained as they walked through streets that Alina now understood were filled with hidden sensors and communication nodes. Military technology development accelerates during active conflicts. What we've built here represents current capabilities, but the next generation of systems will make this look primitive by comparison. Alina paused to interview a shopkeeper who, she now realized through her camera's enhanced displays, was actually a communications operator for Webb's network. The man appeared to be an ordinary civilian going about his morning routine, but Alina's camera revealed the sophisticated equipment concealed within his seemingly normal shop. How many people in this city are actually part of your operation? Webb's answer surprised her. Fewer than you might think. The network operates with minimal human resources precisely because the technology multiplies individual effectiveness exponentially. 12 core operators can coordinate activities across a region that would normally require a full battalion to monitor. Alina was beginning to understand that she was documenting not just advanced military technology, but a fundamental shift in how organized force could be projected and sustained. As they moved through the city, Alina's camera captured evidence of the network's presence in locations she had passed multiple times without noticing anything unusual. Grocery stores with modified communication equipment, repair shops that served as equipment maintenance facilities, even children's playgrounds that concealed sensor arrays. The entire urban environment had been weaponized in ways that remained invisible to conventional reconnaissance. At a cafe that served as one of the network's coordination centers, Alina interviewed the operator who had been tracking her movements since she arrived in the city. The woman appeared to be a typical local resident, but her knowledge of military tactics and electronic warfare revealed years of specialized training. We've been documenting your investigation to ensure that your story accurately represents our capabilities without compromising ongoing operations, she explained. Alina realized that every interaction she had experienced since arriving in the conflict zone had been carefully orchestrated. Her interviews with local rebels, her encounters with military escorts, even the timing of enemy activities in her vicinity had been influenced by Webb's network to create specific narrative opportunities. She hadn't been investigating the Viper legend so much as participating in its controlled revelation. The story you're telling is exactly the story we need told, Webb confirmed when she confronted him about the manipulation. The technology exists, and it will be deployed by multiple military organizations regardless of whether the public understands its implications. Better that people learn about these capabilities through controlled disclosure rather than through tragic miscalculations or enemy propaganda. Alina's camera continued to document evidence of coordination and control that extended far beyond what she had initially suspected. Webb's network hadn't just been providing sniper support to local resistance forces. It had been managing the entire tactical environment within their operational area. Enemy movements, civilian safety, media access, even the timing of humanitarian aid deliveries had been influenced by algorithms designed to optimize outcomes according to strategic objectives she was only beginning to understand. The revelation that her entire investigation had been managed from the beginning created an ethical dilemma that challenged everything Alina thought she knew about journalistic integrity. Had she been conducting legitimate investigative journalism, or had she been participating in an elaborate information operation designed to shape public understanding of emerging military capabilities? Webb seemed to anticipate her concerns. Your investigation would have uncovered the truth eventually. We simply ensured that you uncovered the right truth at the right time. The alternative would have been enemy forces revealing our capabilities through captured equipment analysis, with no context for understanding the defensive rather than aggressive applications of the technology. At a vantage point overlooking the entire city, Alina's camera revealed the full scope of the infrastructure Webb's team had created. What appeared to be a war-torn urban environment was actually a sophisticated network of sensors, communication nodes, and coordination centers that had been providing unprecedented battlefield awareness for months. The legendary accuracy of Viper hadn't been supernatural marksmanship. It had been the result of having perfect information about enemy activities combined with multiple positioning options for engagement. The future of conflict will be determined by information dominance rather than traditional measures of military strength, Webb explained as Alina filmed the cityscape with its hidden technological infrastructure. Small teams with advanced coordination capabilities can achieve effects that previously required large conventional forces. What you're documenting represents the beginning of that transformation. Alina spent the afternoon conducting final interviews with various members of Webb's network, using her enhanced camera to document capabilities that would reshape military thinking for years to come. The equipment that had been malfunctioning mysteriously for days was now providing her with access to information that no civilian journalist had ever been permitted to record. As evening approached, Webb began final preparations for the network's dissolution. Alina watched through her camera as years of infrastructure development were systematically dismantled or abandoned. The legend of Viper was ending, but the technology and tactics he represented were evolving into something that would influence conflicts around the world. Your footage contains embedded data that will allow military analysts to understand not just what we've accomplished, but how similar capabilities can be developed in other operational environments, Webb explained. The story you tell will influence how this technology is deployed and regulated in future conflicts. Alina realized that her investigation had become something far more significant than a human interest story about a legendary sniper. She was carrying documentation that could influence military policy, international law, and public understanding of how technology was transforming the nature of warfare itself. The weight of that responsibility was beginning to settle on her shoulders as she prepared for the final phase of her documentation. Whatever happened next, Alina knew that her story about Viper would become part of the historical record of how warfare evolved in the 21st century. Alina's final night in the conflict zone brought unexpected complications that would test everything she had learned about Webb's operation and her own role in documenting the evolution of modern warfare. Her camera, now functioning as a sophisticated intelligence-gathering device, detected unusual electromagnetic signatures suggesting that hostile forces had indeed developed countermeasures to the Viper network's technological advantages. Enemy signals intelligence units have been analyzing our communication patterns for weeks, Webb explained as he monitored displays showing increased enemy activity throughout the region. They've identified enough components of our network to begin systematic elimination operations. Tonight represents the last opportunity to extract our core personnel and essential equipment before the operation is completely compromised. Alina found herself in the unprecedented position of a civilian journalist embedded within a military operation that was conducting real-time combat operations while simultaneously documenting its own dissolution. Her camera captured the controlled chaos as Webb's team implemented extraction protocols that had been planned for months, but never tested under actual combat conditions. Through her enhanced viewfinder, Alina could see enemy forces moving into positions around key nodes of the Viper network. The same technology that had provided Webb with perfect battlefield awareness was now revealing the systematic dismantling of everything he had built over the past 3 years. She was documenting not just the end of a legend, but the real-time destruction of one of the most sophisticated military operations in modern history. Your documentation serves a dual purpose now, Webb informed her as his team prepared for what was essentially a fighting withdrawal from positions throughout the city. The operational intelligence embedded in your footage will help friendly forces understand what worked and what didn't in our implementation. More importantly, it will provide evidence of the humanitarian applications of our technology. Alina had been so focused on the military implications of the Viper network that she had overlooked its role in civilian protection. Her camera's enhanced capabilities now revealed data streams showing how Webb's team had been coordinating medical evacuations, food distribution, and infrastructure repair throughout the conflict. The same systems used for targeting enemy forces had been protecting civilian populations with a precision that conventional military operations couldn't match. As enemy forces began their assault on the network's positions, Alina's camera captured footage that demonstrated both the capabilities and limitations of the technology Webb had developed. Remote sensor feeds showed enemy units moving through areas that should have been under constant surveillance, indicating that countermeasures were indeed beginning to degrade the network's effectiveness. The technology isn't invulnerable, Webb admitted as he coordinated defensive operations from a mobile command post that could be relocated on minutes' notice. Electronic warfare capabilities are advancing rapidly on both sides. What we've accomplished here represents a temporary advantage that hostile forces are already learning to neutralize. Alina watched through her camera as precision engagements eliminated enemy personnel who threatened civilian evacuation routes. The legendary accuracy attributed to Viper was being demonstrated in real time. But now, she understood the comprehensive intelligence and coordination infrastructure that made such precision possible. Every shot was the result of perfect information rather than supernatural marksmanship skills. The extraction operation revealed aspects of the Viper network that Webb had not previously disclosed. Hidden throughout the city were cache sites containing equipment and supplies that could support follow-on operations by other teams. Alina's camera documented locations and contents that represented millions of pounds worth of advanced military technology positioned for future conflicts. The network doesn't really end, Webb explained as they moved between evacuation points. It evolves. Other teams in other regions are implementing similar capabilities based on what we've learned here. Your documentation will help them avoid our mistakes and build on our successes. Alina realized she was recording not just the conclusion of one operation, but the beginning of a new era in how military organizations would approach information warfare. Enemy countermeasures proved more effective than Webb had anticipated. Alina's camera detected signals that were actively interfering with the network's communication systems, creating dead zones where coordination between team elements became impossible. The technological advantage that had made the Viper legend possible was being systematically neutralized by opponents who had learned to fight differently. This is exactly why your documentation is essential, Webb noted, as his team adapted their tactics to operate without full network coordination. Future operations need to understand both the potential and the vulnerabilities of these systems. Technology provides advantages, but it also creates dependencies that can be exploited by sophisticated opponents. Alina filmed Webb personally engaging enemy forces with the same precision that had made him legendary, but now without the technological support that had enhanced his capabilities. She was witnessing the difference between operator skill and system enhancement, documenting the human element that remained essential even in highly technological military operations. The fighting intensified as enemy forces attempted to capture rather than simply destroy components of Webb's network. Alina's camera revealed the intelligence value of the equipment and data they were trying to protect. Months of operational intelligence, tactical innovations, and technological modifications represented a treasure trove of information that hostile forces desperately wanted to analyze and reverse engineer. They understand that capturing our technology intact would provide advantages in future conflicts, Webb explained during a brief lull in the engagement. That's why complete destruction of sensitive equipment takes priority over personnel extraction. The knowledge we've developed cannot be allowed to fall into hostile hands unchanged. Alina documented the systematic destruction of equipment that had taken years to develop and deploy. Facilities that had provided unprecedented battlefield awareness were reduced to rubble in minutes, erasing evidence of capabilities that had redefined what small military units could accomplish. She was watching the deliberate elimination of military advantages that had cost fortunes to develop. The extraction route took them through areas of the city that Alina's camera revealed as having been prepared for exactly this scenario. Hidden passages, pre-positioned supplies, and alternative communication methods had been established months in advance. Webb's team had planned for the possibility of network compromise with the same thoroughness they had applied to operational development. Military operations require contingency planning for every scenario, including complete mission failure, Webb noted as they utilized infrastructure that had been invisible during Alina's initial investigation. The technology that made Viper possible was always going to have a limited operational lifespan. The question was whether we could extract maximum value before enemy countermeasures eliminated our advantages. Alina's camera captured the final moments of several network facilities as they were either destroyed by Webb's team or overrun by enemy forces. Years of infrastructure development, technological innovation, and tactical refinement were being erased in hours. She was documenting the end of an era in military operations, but also the beginning of whatever would follow. As dawn approached, Webb's team reached their final extraction point, where transport helicopters waited to carry personnel and essential equipment to safety. Alina's camera revealed the modest scale of what was being preserved compared to the vast infrastructure that had been abandoned or destroyed. The Viper network had been built to be expendable, with its most valuable asset being the knowledge and experience of the personnel who had developed it. "The legend ends here," Webb told Alina as they prepared to board the extraction aircraft. "But the capabilities we've developed will resurface in new forms with new operational requirements. Your documentation ensures that the lessons we've learned will benefit future operations rather than being lost with the destruction of our equipment." Alina realized that her investigation had become something unprecedented in military journalism. She had documented not just the operations of a legendary sniper, but the complete life cycle of a revolutionary military capability from deployment through compromise to evolution. Her footage contained embedded intelligence that would influence military thinking for decades. As the helicopter lifted off from the conflict zone, Alina's camera captured final images of the city where the Viper network had operated. The urban environment looked exactly as it had when she arrived, giving no indication of the sophisticated military infrastructure that had been hidden within it. The legend of an impossible sniper would persist, but the truth about the technology that had made the legend possible would remain classified at levels she was only beginning to understand. 6 months after her extraction from the conflict zone, Alina sat in a secure briefing room deep within the Ministry of Defense building in London, watching intelligence analysts examine footage that had been captured with technology she still didn't fully understand. Her camera, now permanently modified by its exposure to Webb's network, continued to function with capabilities that had transformed her from a war correspondent into an inadvertent developer of military documentation systems. "The embedded metadata in your footage has provided insights that would have taken our analysts years to develop through conventional intelligence gathering," explained Colonel Sarah Matthews, the senior intelligence officer overseeing the review process. "Your documentation represents the most comprehensive record of advanced battlefield coordination technology that we've ever obtained." Alina had spent months in debriefing sessions, technical consultations, and security reviews as various government agencies analyzed the implications of what she had documented. The story she had originally intended to write about a legendary sniper had become classified material that was influencing military policy at the highest levels of government. Her footage was being used to develop countermeasures, training programs, and operational doctrine for conflicts that hadn't yet begun. The public version of her story, heavily edited and stripped of technical details, had been published to international acclaim. Alina had won awards for her investigation into the myth of Viper, but the recognition felt hollow when she knew that the most important aspects of her discovery would never see public scrutiny. She had become complicit in a level of information control that challenged everything she believed about journalistic integrity. Colonel Webb's operation represented a watershed moment in the evolution of individual combat effectiveness, Colonel Matthews continued. "The technology he demonstrated will be proliferating throughout military organizations worldwide within the next 5 years. Your documentation provides us with a crucial head start in understanding both the capabilities and vulnerabilities of these systems." Alina learned that similar operations were already being implemented by military units in 3 other conflict zones, using lessons learned from Webb's experiences and technical innovations captured in her footage. The Viper network had been the prototype for a new category of military unit that would fundamentally change how modern armies approached battlefield coordination and individual soldier effectiveness. Her camera, permanently modified by its exposure to Webb's technology, had become a testing platform for capabilities that were being developed for future military correspondence. Alina found herself consulting with equipment manufacturers and training programs designed to prepare journalists for conflicts involving advanced electronic warfare systems. She was helping to create the infrastructure for reporting on wars that would be fought with technology that didn't yet exist. The humanitarian applications of coordination technology have proven as significant as the military capabilities, Colonel Matthews noted, showing Alina classified footage of operations in other regions where similar systems were being used to coordinate disaster relief and civilian protection. "Your documentation of how Webb's team protected civilian populations has influenced international law discussions about the regulation of automated battlefield management systems." Alina discovered that her investigation had contributed to policy debates at the United Nations, NATO planning sessions, and academic conferences discussing the ethics of technologically enhanced warfare. Her footage was being used to support arguments about both the benefits and dangers of systems that could coordinate military operations with unprecedented precision and minimal human oversight. The technical analysis of her modified camera had revealed innovations that were being incorporated into next-generation military communication systems. Alina's equipment had essentially become a prototype for battlefield documentation technology that would provide military units with enhanced situational awareness and coordination capabilities. She had inadvertently participated in the development of equipment that would be used in conflicts for decades to come. "Your role in this story isn't finished," Colonel Matthews informed Alina during their final briefing session. "The technology you've documented will continue evolving, and we need experienced observers who understand both the capabilities and implications of these systems. You've become one of the few civilian specialists qualified to report on this category of military operations." Alina faced a decision that would determine the direction of her career for years to come. She could return to conventional conflict journalism, but with the knowledge that she would be observing wars that were being fought with technology and tactics she had helped document. Alternatively, she could continue working with military organizations to develop the ethical and legal frameworks that would govern the use of coordination systems in future conflicts. The weight of responsibility was overwhelming. Alina's investigation into a legendary sniper had revealed military capabilities that could influence the balance of international power for generations. Her footage contained technical details that could help democratic military organizations maintain advantages over authoritarian opponents, but it also documented technology that could be misused if it fell into the wrong hands. Webb contacted her through secure channels 6 months after their extraction from the conflict zone. He was operating in a different region under a different identity, implementing lessons learned from the Viper network's operations and eventual compromise. The technology had evolved, but the fundamental approach of using advanced coordination to multiply individual effectiveness remained constant. "The story you told has had exactly the impact we hoped for," Webb informed her during a classified video conference. "Public awareness of coordination technology has influenced military procurement decisions and international regulations in ways that favor defensive rather than aggressive applications. Your documentation helped shape how this capability will be developed and deployed." Alina learned that her published article had been translated into dozens of languages and was being used in military academies worldwide as a case study in the evolution of modern warfare. The legend of Viper had become a teaching tool for understanding how technology could enhance individual capabilities while maintaining human control over critical decision-making processes. The classified footage she had captured was being used to train the next generation of military operators who would implement even more advanced coordination systems. Alina's documentation had become the foundation for understanding how humans and technology could work together to achieve effects that neither could accomplish independently. "The future conflicts you'll be covering will involve capabilities that make the Viper network look primitive," Webb warned. "Artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and coordination technology will continue advancing at exponential rates. The world needs journalists who understand these developments and can help the public understand their implications." Alina realized that her investigation had fundamentally changed not just her understanding of modern warfare, but her role as a journalist covering conflicts that involved technology beyond public comprehension. She had become a bridge between military innovation and public understanding, with responsibilities that extended far beyond traditional war correspondence. The final revelation came when Alina learned that her modified camera was one of 12 similar devices being deployed with journalists covering conflicts around the world. Her equipment had become part of a network designed to document the evolution of warfare in real time, providing intelligence organizations with comprehensive understanding of how military technology was being used and misused in various operational environments. "Your investigation opened doors that can't be closed," Colonel Matthews concluded. "The public now knows that coordination technology exists, even if they don't understand its full implications. Your continued work will help ensure that democratic societies maintain the technological advantages necessary to preserve international stability while preventing the misuse of capabilities that could threaten civilian populations. Alina left the Ministry of Defense building with a new assignment that would take her to conflicts involving technology that hadn't existed when she began investigating the legend of Viper. Her camera, now a sophisticated intelligence-gathering device, would continue documenting the evolution of warfare in ways that would influence military development and public policy for years to come. The story of her investigation into a legendary sniper had become the story of how journalism itself was evolving to cover conflicts that challenged traditional understanding of warfare, technology, and the balance between individual capability and institutional power. Alina had documented the end of one era and the beginning of another, but her role in that transformation was far from finished. As she prepared for her next assignment, Alina understood that the legend of Viper had been just the beginning of a story that would continue evolving as long as technology continued changing the nature of human conflict. Her documentation would become part of the historical record of how democratic societies learned to understand and regulate capabilities that could reshape the balance of international power. The weight of that responsibility was both daunting and inspiring, as Alina prepared to continue her work as one of the few civilian specialists qualified to document the ongoing evolution of 21st-century warfare.